So welcome to the Focus 3 podcast with Tim Kight and Urban Meyer. Urban, great to see you again.
Great to see you. Nice hot day in Columbus and it's a beautiful day.
Yeah, good to be back in front of the microphone. And our topic today is building skill. I'd like to call this the Get Better Mindset episode. And, I think about no matter where you are in life, whatever business you're in or family or social life, everybody wants success. Everybody wants to be successful. They want to achieve things. They want to accomplish goals. Everybody wants that. However they define success, people want it. But here's the thing. In order to be successful, you got to build the skills required to do the things necessary to be successful. So success doesn't happen without skill building. It just doesn't happen unless you develop yourself and you grow. And it's a fascinating topic. You've spent your career helping other people get better, not just at the game of football. And I think of the Real Life Wednesdays and all the things that you did at Ohio State. But you've been a person whose passion has been to help people get better at a sport, at life, at school. And that's our topic for today. And we're going to talk about what does it mean to grow and build skill. And a topic you want to address today?
I think this will be a topic that will change the hearts of a lot of people, and it's something that I learned over the years. And I'd like to say this, you'll hear this many times throughout our conversations, and you've heard it, Tim, is that that's a very easy question. Do you want to be great? Or what do you want to be great at? And I always tell people, very easy question, extremely complicated answer. And building the skill is the secret sauce to excellence, individual excellence, and then obviously when you put in group in the team world, building skill is the secret sauce.
Yep. So we're going to talk about building skill. We're going to address 3 myths about skill building, and we're going to focus on 3 commitments. Let's get to work. So I want to start with 3 myths about skill building. It's really interesting. And let me just state them, and I want to get your perspective. Myth 1 is that talent equals skill. Myth 2 is that experience equals expertise. And myth 3 is that practice makes perfect. And I've been around enough to know that I think people do tend to think that way, that talent equals skill, that experience equals expertise, but practice makes perfect. Let's tackle that first one. Talent equals skill. True or not true?
Oh, that might be one of the most incorrect equations I've ever seen, and we've all, and really anybody that's been around understands that I can relate it to, once again, my world, and my world was college football for 33 years, and that is that my best players weren't, matter of fact, they usually weren't the most skilled, most talented. Skill is something that you develop, skill, and we're going to talk about this in great detail, and the term that I've always used with great examples, once again, that we'll discuss, is with intention and with purpose. And the skill, I want to be great at a certain thing. And then what you have to do, and this is where people fail, I failed. The normal, we're fallen beings, we're impulsive beings. And that without the understand that you need to self-evaluate and embrace a very difficult conversation with yourself and those around you. What am I not good at? I've seen coaches fail miserably, very talented people, that the self-evaluation wasn't there. They didn't want to work on a skill to help them get where they want to get. I've seen athletes. It's much easier to evaluate than a coach, but an athlete that just would not work on a certain skill because it was uncomfortable. He knew he was not good at it. For example, in the game of golf, you're a bad putter, work on that skill. Often, I'll give you one example that's the opposite. Paris Campbell, one of the greatest football players I've ever coached, he was unrecruited out of high school. He was a guy that after about year 1, year 2, we were going to move to defense. He could not catch. His skill to become an elite receiver, first round or second round draft pick to catch the ball was not good enough. The constant self-evaluation by him, myself as receiver coach, and the building skill that he put into it, he'll go down as one of the great players in Ohio State history. Mm-hmm. There's other guys that were more skillful than him or more talented than him you'll never hear of because they did not work with intention and purpose at a skill.
And we're going to get into the mechanics of skill building, but there's that first myth, and I'd love the comments. You can have talent, but if you don't do the work, you're not going to have the skill. Talent and skill are not the same thing. There are people. Everyone's born with talent. How about this? You're born with talent. You're not born with skill. Skill is developed and built. Agreed?
And once again, that's a very easy comment to make. The complicated answer is how to go do that.
Which
and that's within purpose.
And we're going to talk about that. Here's the second myth: experience equals expertise. And I'll take a shot at this one because I have seen so many people who have been in business, been in a role for 10, 15, 20 years, and they think because they have all this experience that they're truly expert at what they do. But the reality is this: the vast majority of people, and this is a sad reality, most people don't get better at their job after about 7 or 8 years. They reach a plateau and stop. And then they end up being better at keeping the job than they do at getting better at the job.
That's right.
And I think there's a huge difference between 15 years of experience and the same experience 15 years in a row. I call that being a ditto person, a ditto coach, a ditto manager. Meaning,
well, let's ask why. Why does that happen? I got very strong opinions.
Let me make sure people get the ditto. Ditto means same guy this year I was last year. I'm a ditto, and that I think that breaks my heart when I see that.
In the world, once again, that I've been used to forever, or for 30 plus years, is that it's because the human beings, myself included, self-evaluation is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Or taking critical feedback is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, especially when you work hard. And I would always say enhance your strengths, fix your weaknesses. How do you identify your strengths and your weaknesses? You self-evaluate, but then you also seek advice from counsel, from those you love, you mean a lot to you, and say, what do I need to work on? And then you go to work.
Do you remember when you and I first sat down and talked back in 2013? I don't know if you remember this conversation or not. You expressed a desire to you wanted me to come in and you wanted Brian and I to help the team and we told you yes, but we don't just work with players, we work with coaching staff, and we had all the conversation. Then you and I got alone and I asked you a question and I said, you've asked us to help the team, we've said yes. You've asked us to help the staff, we've said yes. And I asked you a very important question. I'll never forget what you said. I asked you, Coach Meyer, you've won 2 national championships. You've been passionate about leadership development. Why would you want an outside person like me to come in and help you? Do you remember what you told me?
I do not.
You looked at me and you said, Tim, because I'm not good enough at my job, I have gaps and I want you to help me. You remember that now?
I don't remember exactly, but that would be something that I would say, because that certain people are blessed with certain skills. Mine is I want to get better.
Yeah.
I wasn't very good in a lot of things, and I wanted to get better. And when I saw someone that could make us better, and all due respect, a nice person, all that. However, I saw a value to Tim Kight, to myself, which would make my team better as well. So absolutely, I can see myself saying that.
Obviously, my point though was this notion of self-evaluation and what we'll talk about, I call it get better mindset. But I was so struck, profoundly affected by that comment on your part. And you're a passionate, energetic person, very competitive. And I saw in you and I felt in you when you said that, that's a dude that wants to get better. Right? And how rare it is that someone reaches the level of success that you had at that time and just wasn't satisfied with his level of skill building. And you had the self-evaluation and the humility and the courage to look at yourself and say, I got gaps. I've got areas I've got to get better. And it was not like, you didn't check the box. It wasn't something you're supposed to say. I mean, it came from the heart. I mean, you could see it. You wanted to get better. And you're at the same spot now, right?
I am. And I speak a lot, and I get asked a lot of questions. And whether it be in the corporate world where you're a manager and you want to become a vice president, you want to keep moving up the chain. You're an assistant coach, you want to become a coordinator, then you want to become a head coach. And something that I personally experienced, I was very young, obviously. I was a grad student here at Ohio State, and I wanted to be a college football coach.
What year was that?
1986. And I was here. And I was not very comfortable public speaking. in case people aren't aware that being a head coach is nothing but, whether it be in front of a team, a staff, or in front of 60,000 people in an arena, you have to be comfortable in front of people. And so I knew that. It was a self-evaluation. It was very clear. So I would often, late at night, myself and actually Tim Hinton, who's there now, we would stay and clinic each other. So I just over and over reps where you're talking and drawing. And so when it became time to go interview for that spot, I've done it 1,000 times. The other thing I went and did is I think it was on 3rd Avenue, there's a Catholic church, and I lived on Neal Avenue. I went and volunteered.
Big giant house?
Yeah. Well, 4 people living in a dungeon. But I would go speak and read at the church. I had no desire to do that. As a matter of fact, I hated it. But the term that you use quite often, and I do as well, is embrace the discomfort.
Yeah.
I was building skill, and it was awful. But after 5 times doing it, of the reps, you know what? I got pretty good at it. And more importantly, I got comfortable doing it where now I could do it, and you work over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I've had someone say, I want to be a head coach. And I would bring that person in and say, great, here's your strengths. You're a great people person, great recruiter, great this, great that. Keep going. You're not very good in front of the team. You're not very good public speaking. You're not very good arranging your thoughts and sharing them with people. Here's what we got to do. And how many times they've never done a thing to help them, and they're still the same ditto person. Like, I love how you say that you were 5 years ago.
Yeah. So that leads to the third myth: practice makes perfect. And it's a myth, and it's subtle, because what you just talked about was the kind of practice that does build skill. But here's the reality. Just because you practice doesn't mean, just because you do reps at something doesn't mean you're getting better at it. Can you practice and do reps on, rhetorical question. If you practice on autopilot, do you get better?
No. You have to practice with intention, with purpose.
Yeah. And we'll talk about what that looks like. Repeated behavior, this is interesting. Repeated behavior always builds habit. It doesn't always build skill.
That's exactly right. Behavior with intent, I'm sure we're going to hit this. Behavior with intention and purpose does build skill.
So there's practice, and then there's intentional practice. And this is interesting for all of you listening, because we know our audience, and there are athletic coaches that follow us and listen to this podcast. There are teachers, educators, principals, central office administrators, and teachers in classrooms who listen to us. There are students who listen to us. There's athletes who listen to us. A lot of business people who listen to us. Folks, please get this. If you don't behave with intention every day, you're not going to get better at your job. If you're not intentionally practicing, and we'll focus on it in a moment, but just hear us out on this, and I want to grab your attention, because we want you to get better. The reason we're doing this podcast, our mission, our purpose for doing this is, one, I think you and I want to get better at the lives we have, right? And then we want you to benefit from whatever insights, whatever things that I've learned about getting better, whatever things, Urban, you've learned about getting better. We want the folks who listen to us to get value from that. So I'm going to ask a question to everyone, and dial in here, folks. Listen to me. If you're driving, if you're working out, if you're on a walk right now, if you're listening in your living room or your den, listen carefully to this question. What is your strategy for building the skills you need for the life you want?
How many people could really answer that question? I know I had a hard time with that for many years, but the one thing that, as you continue, I just want to put this in there, is that it's got to be steps. So the first thing you have to do is first identify what you want to be, what you want to do. Okay, now you've done that.
Okay, let me. I love that. I was going to go there, and you went there first. That's cool. Everyone wants.
Not hard to want.
Not hard to want.
But you know what? There's nothing wrong with wanting. And sometimes I'll hear people say that. Great, want all you want. You know what? Go get it.
I love it. Want all you want. That's good. That's great.
My son, like I told you, I want this. Great, want it. Okay, now stage 2. Self-evaluate and have someone that you trust evaluate you. How am I doing? Am I headed in that direction?
What skills do you need to achieve what you want?
That's right. What do I have already? Enhance them. And what don't I have? What do I need work at? That's called self. That usually is the line of demarcation that not many people cross. They don't like that. That's uncomfortable.
So there's want ethic and there's work ethic. They're not the same.
No. So you identify what you want. You identify also after evaluation, self-evaluation, other evaluation. And then number 3 is, okay, time to put a plan, an intentional plan in place to build the skill so I can get to where I want.
That's gold. May I add another thing to your you talked about identify your strengths and keep doing them, identify areas and improve them. I'm going to add a third thing, and I think you'd agree completely. Identify things that you're doing that hold you back and get rid of them. Their stop doing list. Agreed?
Say that again.
So you said identify the strengths that you have, keep doing them. This is self-evaluation.
Enhance what you have.
And so enhance what you have.
Because never, I would stop you there. I'd say never keep doing them. Because someone's catching you.
Yeah.
It's too competitive.
Yeah,
man.
you better.
You throw Dwayne Haskins. You throw the ball really well. Great. You better keep getting better.
That's why I call the get better mindset. Yeah. But I want to add another thing to self-evaluation. Identify, evaluate yourself for the bad habits, the things that you have in your life you shouldn't be doing.
That's right.
That's a stop doing list. So there's a build and enhance list, and there's a stop doing list.
That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah.
And do
you remember the quote that we had in our team room? I think it's still there. I believe it's a Kobe Bryant quote. And if your habits don't reflect your dream and goals, change your habits.
Yeah.
And then I changed that. So I'm going to say that again slowly. If your habits don't reflect your dreams and goals, change your habits. And I laugh at that because people say, I'll change. It is so hard to change. You have to understand how hard. I drink, I do this, I don't take care of my body, yet I want to be a professional athlete. Great. Change. How hard is it to really change? I see people ruin their lives all the time. I always at the bottom add this, then change your dreams and goals. Be honest with you. You can lie to me, lie to you, lie to your coach. Don't ever lie to yourself. For example, my son wants to be a professional baseball player. Does his habits reflect that? If it doesn't, change your habits, and I'll help you do that. However, or change your dreams and goals.
The way, if you
accept the fact that you will not be a Major League Baseball player, and if you can really do that, that's okay.
Be courageous in seeing that. This is great. Remember, I picked up on this when I taught R4. R4 and R factor is adjust and adapt. And when I taught it to the team, I said this, and we actually showed a Steph Curry video, and the quote was this: "Make sure that the habits that you have today are in alignment with the dreams that you have for tomorrow." Which is just a takeoff on what you said. Make sure that the habits you have today are in alignment with the dreams that you have for tomorrow. And that's this whole notion of
if not, be honest with yourself. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
And move on.
Deception is bad. Self-deception is disastrous. So we got to be honest with ourselves. All right. So the 3 myths: talent, we now know, does not equal skill. Experience does not equal expertise, and practice does not necessarily make perfect. So in order to get great at something, we suggest 3 commitments. And let's keep it at 3. And then obviously it's a big topic, but let's keep it simple and actionable. Here are the 3 commitments if you want to get great at your life, if you want to achieve what you want, if you want to have success socially, academically, athletically, professionally. 3 things. Number 1, choose the mindset. Number 2, do the work. And number 3, be coachable. And let's put the whole journey of getting better at something in those 3 pillars. Choose the mindset. And I'm going to call it a get better mindset. Do the work. That's this intentional practice that you're talking about, Urban. And then be coachable and open to feedback. So let's unpack those 3. So the first one is choose the mindset. Carol Dweck wrote a great book called Growth Mindset. And I call it get better mindset. There's I think a misnomer out there that the best performers are gifted. And while I would agree that people that perform at elite levels are usually gifted and talented, obviously, maybe more than the average person, but that's misleading because the reality is you can build skill you don't have talent for. Everyone is capable of building next level skill, but only if they have this get better mindset. You've been in front of so many. What's the mindset that the most competitive, successful athletes bring? What's the mindset? What's the way of thinking of the elite performer who's getting better every day?
The way my mind works, as you went through choose the mindset, I have 2 players that, because I've just been around these exceptionals, athletes and performers. Obviously, the talent ranged from very average to mediocre to extremely talented, like we've been around. But I've been around the exceptional. And so you take a player, and I have Tebow and J.T. Barrett in mind right now as I'm sitting there listening to you speak. Talent-wise, I would not probably put them in the top 100 in America when they were coming out as far as talent. However, they were, once again, we're talking about the national population, very talented people, but not what they became. Their talents were the mindset that they had, and you just asked a question: what would be the common mindset of a guy like J.T. Barrett? I think there's two. One is I'm going to do because they're also blessed with in the mindset of being unselfish. I'm going to do whatever I can to help my team, but they want to be known as one of the greatest to ever play the game. Tim Tebow would tell you that. J.T. Barrett, he wants to be, one of the things that drove him, he wanted to go down as one of the great quarterbacks in Ohio State history. He did. Tim Tebow wanted to go down as one of the great players in college football history. He did. So what was that mindset? The mindset was, and it goes under the want, what I said, which is nothing wrong with the want. Sometimes I hear people shoot down the wants. I don't. I encourage the want. I encourage dreams. I always have. I want this. Well, great. Now the second, that's easy. That didn't take a whole lot of effort to give me your want. But the mindset is the critical piece, how strong and how tough you are to put your mind at it to accomplish what you want.
So you mentioned earlier about embracing productive discomfort.
Right.
And I would say that is part of the mindset of getting better, is recognizing that the journey, that daily work, the journey of getting better, is there are going to be spots, maybe long periods when it's really tedious and difficult and uncomfortable. The get better mindset says, yes, I understand that and I embrace it. Agreed?
Absolutely.
How about the attitude towards mistakes? What's the mindset of a get better person with regard to mistakes? How do they view mistakes?
I've seen the both ends of it. I've seen the reckless, fearless person's can make mistakes, don't care, and keep pushing through it. I've seen people that are over. Alex Smith is another. I give you these examples that Alex Smith was the #1 draft pick overall, and he did not want to make a mistake, and it paralyzed his performance because he was such an expert at it. J.T. Barrett was more of and Tim Tebow was much different. However, you're talking about elite people and elite work ethic, and I think you have to work through self-evaluation to be about it. Alex he would not release the ball. He would not let his skill play because he was so paralyzed about perfection, not wanting to make a mistake. Tebow was the opposite. Tebow was the guy that effort and my work ethic and everything's going to overcome any mistakes I make. I'm going. As a matter of fact, I'm going as hard as I possibly can. And we worked with both. So we had to eliminate the fear of Alex. And the only way to eliminate fear, because such an intelligent player, is coach him night and day, nonstop, 24/7 until he became comfortable. And then he did. Then you had a Heisman Trophy finalist.
So I think what I'm hearing in that, and this is what I've observed, that elite learners use mistakes as feedback.
Absolutely.
And I made a comment yesterday. I did a session yesterday for a bunch of NFL and college coaches, and I made the comment about elite performers take mistakes seriously, but not personally. You agree with that statement?
Absolutely. And I think the example I just gave you is elite performers, they listen to the feedback, however, that doesn't stop them.
The embracing productive discomfort is interesting because I use the phrase embrace, meaning that elite performers in their mind, they don't tolerate discomfort. They embrace it.
They embrace it if it knows it's going to means to an end.
That's why it's productive.
Yeah.
It's not just general discomfort. It's specific. It's focused. It's intentional.
And for the average, which I have a lot of average in me, is that, like we all do, that's awful.
Yeah.
When someone, because you get ego involved, you start BCDing, you're like, wait a minute now, coach, you need to get better at this. And every year we have evaluation with the athletic director, and this is great. You need to work. Wait a minute. Then you start to get defensive, but then you start in solitude and you start thinking about it. Absolutely, I need to get better at that. Those are the ones that do get better.
Yeah, and that's the other mindset is be coachable, which we'll actually talk about here as a competency. But the willingness to get feedback and be coachable. Here's what we know about the human brain and learning. It's interesting. If you avoid discomfort, you eliminate learning. If you avoid discomfort, you eliminate learning. This goes back to the myth of experience equals expertise. The reason why people don't get better in their careers as they progress is they avoid discomfort. They get to a level where they're good. They're not great. They're not elite. They're not exceptional. They're good. So they rise to a skill level that usually aligns with their talent, and then they keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And they're producing good results. Not great results, but good results. And when asked to do something different that's uncomfortable, they avoid it. They stay in the classic comfort zone. And that's how you get stuck.
Well, there's science involved in that as well.
Yeah.
You just think about the body, discomfort. You want a muscle to grow, you have to put it through extreme discomfort. You want the mind to grow. How about this too, that one of our rules was about the teaching environment. And people listening to this can go back in their life when they're in high school and college. The worst teaching environment was one of comfort. People sitting back, you're falling asleep, the teacher's not very good. They present, they don't teach. The best environment to teach is what? Just an uncomfortable environment, because you're on edge, your brain's working, you're firing on all cylinders. So our rule at Ohio State and Florida and Utah and Bowling Green was I wanted a very uncomfortable teaching environment. I wanted students, athletes.
Purposeful discomfort.
Purposeful. I wanted people to sit on the edge of their seat with their brain firing, and I want them to be, if I'm going to call on you and you don't know the answer, it was going to be a bad day in that meeting room. And I wanted them to be very uncomfortable. Discomfort, productive discomfort, creates growth.
There we go. Yeah, the struggle is necessary. It's necessary.
And you know very early in a person's career, those who embrace it and love it, watch out.
Yep.
I mean, like I gave you, J.T. Barrett, T-Ball, Alex Smith, those are people that embraced it, wanted it, thrived on it, and as a result grew.
So let me summarize the get better mindset. I'm going to put this in first person. Here's how an elite learner in any domain thinks about skill building. Building skill takes time and effort. I will invest the time and be tenaciously persistent. That's the person talking to themselves. I understand that discomfort is part of the process. If I avoid discomfort, I prevent learning. I will make mistakes, and they will teach me. I want feedback and coaching. That's the mindset of someone that's getting better every day. Don't have that mindset, and you're probably not going to do the work. All right, so the first commitment is build this mindset. Now, if you're listening to this and that's not your mindset, do what Urban said, self-evaluate. I mean, this podcast today might be a wake-up call for some people.
And understand that the normal reaction is, I don't like this. Yeah. That's okay. You know, I don't like the fact that, I'm not here to share my weaknesses, but we all do. But one of the first reactions is that that's not true. You know, I'm being and there's two ways to get feedback: self-evaluate and evaluation by a peer or someone you trust. Mm-hmm. But you need to take that to heart.
And we'll get to that in a third one. You know, you said you don't want to share. We're not here to share your weaknesses, but we're going to talk about that in this podcast. We're going to talk about me. We're going to talk about you, and because you and I are on a journey, right? I mean, I'm 66 and I'm learning every day. I've got gaps. I've got areas. I won't arrive. And you're, how old are you? Something in there.
55.
50 yeah. Something in there. And you're growing. And that's, like I said before, I love that about you have this mindset, and we share that. I think it's one of the reasons that
we have to ask, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And to be quite honest with you, I love to, first of all, enjoy hanging out with you because I learn something every time. And second of all, this is an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
You know, I learn something every time we sit down. Like right now, this is not screwing around. I'm getting better.
You've taken a bunch of notes there in front of you. Yeah, that's cool. All right, so the second commitment, they're commitments. One's this, get the mindset, choose the mindset. Number two is do the work. Big phrase for us at Focus 3. Do the work. Now, the work we're talking about, and Urban's mentioned it, and let's double down on it. It's specific. It's intentional. It's not general work. It's not unfocused effort. And I'm gonna use 4 elements about doing the work, and let's talk about them. Number one, you need to study. You need to identify the mechanics of the skills that you need. You have to do your homework. So you got to study, number one. That's the first work. Second work is focus reps. You call it intentional practice, right? Intentional repetitions. And so you've got to do the reps. So once you've studied, you got to then go do what you have been studying. Then number three, I love this one, is reach. In other words, we call it train at the edge. Go just beyond the limit of your current abilities. In other words, get out of the comfort zone into this realm that you and I talked about a moment ago. Urban is productive discomfort. That's the reach part. And then the fourth thing is you're going to make mistakes, so use those mistakes as feedback. So study, do focus reps, reach, and then use mistakes as feedback. Talk about that first one for a second, the notion of studying and educate yourself about the skill that you want to build.
And the way that we accomplish this in the athletic environment is we would often show the elite and the best at what they do and have our players study them. For example, I'm going to watch the best receiver in the NFL if I'm a great receiver. I'm going to watch the best quarterback, and then I'm going to self-evaluate. I'm going to study this person. As a matter of fact, there's times we would bring that person in and visit with our athletes, especially ones, we had a great advantage here at Ohio State. I had Joey Galloway, one of the greatest receivers in NFL history, and he was built. He was great because he worked at it. You have to also be careful. My advice would be those that don't have to work at their great, keep them away, because that's going against what you teach. But you need to study. My advice would be you study the very best at what they do, if it's in your line of work, and you try to, do what you can to either mirror or pattern yourself after how they got there.
And that's so awesome. I mean, when we say study, read, Google, YouTube,
video,
workshops, video. And again, those are, and we live in an awesome time. I mean, you can
all access.
But you mentioned something really powerful. Go study people in your domain who are exceptional at their job. If you're a leader, go study great leaders. If you're a salesperson, go study a phenomenal salesperson.
And I don't mean to be redundant on this podcast, but the Mike Thomas, who's arguably going to be the highest paid receiver in the National Football League. On Friday nights, I would sit and watch him study not only the team that we're playing, but he would also have NFL video on his iPad and college video of the best receivers out there. Mm-hmm. And he would study, nonstop study, and to the point where he'd slow it down and watch every move, watch the efficiency that they moved at. And I would watch it with him and ask him, this is all self-driven too. I didn't make him go do that. That goes back to the mindset. Number one, mindset. Yeah. You talk about mindset of wanting to become elite. And then number two, do the work. And the number one is study it. That he might be the poster child as far as I saw a guy study.
I'm going to modify slightly what we're saying here. So we're going to talk about focused and intentional reps. It just occurred to me, the intentionality of your reps is driven by the intentionality of your study. Is that fair? The intentionality of the reps, the purposefulness with which you practice is driven by how clearly and how intentionally you've studied the skill that you're pursuing.
I thought of it that way, but that's exactly correct. Is that why would Mike do that? Why would Mike the intention? And then he would study, and then I'd see him take that to the practice field.
See, that's my point. Why am I studying that? Because I want to do that, and I study it because I'm not there yet. I don't do it that well. So I look at it and I see it in the study step, and then I go practice it in the focus rep step. Man, that's it. Again, folks, no matter being a parent, communicating, listening, those are all skills. All of it. Emotional management, it's a skill. Those are all competencies. And very few of us were born with talent in those areas. And we definitely weren't born with skills in those areas. And I actually think the behavioral skills are harder than the technical ones when all is said and done. But that's a topic for another time. So then this focus reps, and that's the next step. Once I've studied, I got clarity on what the skill looks like. Now I got to go practice and practice and practice and practice. How long? How much?
Well, I would share this with our players, and I live at Muirfield, and I would see Jason Day would be one of the greatest examples, obviously one of the greatest golfers today in the pro golfing world and on the tour. And so Jason Day would, you'd see the average golfer go out and do certain things, and you'd see that's striving to become the best. And I would tell people, and I actually stood right next to him, he would take an 8-iron for 2 hours and go to work. You know, how many people are doing it, but that's very intentional, very purpose. Obviously, I don't know exactly why he was doing that, but I could appreciate what was going on. He wasn't very good at that skill, and so he's becoming better and better and better. So he had the mindset to be the very best. He put a practice plan and a focused reps on what he was trying to get accomplished. And the average, and think about this too, this is another great visualization. Larry Bird, I heard him say this, and I shared this with my team. Whatever your skill, whatever your endeavor, whatever your trade, whatever you want to become great at. For example, I'm a professional basketball player. I never grab a basketball without it being intentional, without being purpose, because I will develop a bad habit. One bad rep will take me 100 good reps to overcome. I'm going to say that again. One bad rep will take me 100 solid positive reps to overcome. So I would see athletes all the time. I'm a wide receiver. I screw around, I drop a pass. You just developed a bad habit. That's going to take you 100, in my mind, that's a mindset, 100 quality positive reps to overcome that one bad rep. So what's the moral to the story? Don't have that bad rep. Mm-hmm. When you touch that basketball, it's with purpose, with intention. It's not screwing around, or that's exactly what you are.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking then is it's repetition and reflection. This goes back to what I said earlier. Repeated behavior always builds habit. It doesn't always build skill. So phrase that I wrote down: practice the right things the right way for as long as it takes.
With intention, with purpose, and I think I love adding that, with intention and with purpose.
Yep.
Intention is the what, and then the purpose is the why.
Is the why.
Am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I spending this much time hitting this damn 8-iron? What's the purpose? Because I want to become better at this.
Yep.
Why am I spending, and this, it gets me a little intense when I think about this, because I've dealt with this. Why would I work on becoming a very good speaker in front of a team and in front of a group of people? Because I want to become a head coach. Well, go do it. Go do it. Well, I don't like to do that. That goes back to the embracing the discomfort. So intentional, what's the what? And then the purpose, why am I doing it?
So study, focus reps, and then you went to that third thing, reach. In order to get better at something, you have to reach beyond your current ability. Go to what we call the edge.
And the edge is the visual that we've come up with, is that's where average stops, elite begins.
Yep.
And we actually had the graphic we still is there. The edge is the edge of the mountain, mm-hmm. where humans stop, mm-hmm. where average stops, mm-hmm. and elite takes that giant step. Yep. And that step is so hard.
And it's uncomfortable. And the reason it's uncomfortable, and I like describing the edge this way, obviously I agree with where average stops, elite begins. Why? Because the edge is where you need to build skill you don't have talent for. How about this? Talent's a gift, elite's a choice. I love this reality. This is science. This is neuroplasticity in the brain. Talent is available to people who are born with it. Elite skill is available to anyone willing to do the work to build it.
Great examples in every trade. How about this too? Think about this for 1 second. There's a mandate in college sports that you can only work 20 hours per week. And I'd stand there, and that's a good rule because coaches will abuse it. However, that player has to understand you're a 20-hour-a-week worker. You're going to be average as the day is long. You are not going to...
No matter how much talent you have.
No. You will reach the edge and stop. And that's a limitation on greatness to me. Mm-hmm. I agree with the rule. However, a player that says, I'm going to stop at 20 hours, that's exactly what you're going to have.
So the fourth element of doing the work is using mistakes as feedback. I think we've covered that. That's part of the self-evaluation. Be honest about you've made a mistake, which just means you're not quite at the level you need to be yet. And that's part of the journey. Mistakes are not the opposite of success. They're part of success because it's the journey. So choose the mindset is the first commitment. Do the work is the second commitment. And under do the work, study, do focus reps, reach, train at the edge, and then use mistakes as feedback. The third commitment, be coachable. There are limits to how much self-evaluation I can do. I mean, I love the self-evaluation. You and I believe deeply in it, but I've got blind spots. There's things about my performance, things about my behavior, things about how I do things I just don't see clearly. So if I'm going to be great, if I'm going to be elite, I need someone to observe and give me feedback and probably push me.
So let's take a peek at that. So the early in your career, the novice, the person that's just in the world I can relate it to as an athlete or a coach, they're early in your career of coaching. Seeking feedback is not hard. You're getting it all the time.
Yeah.
What becomes hard is when you become pretty good at what you do. So the elite athlete gets to be very, very good. The Tom Brady's of the world. Yet Tom Brady, I watched him. He's still extremely coachable. That's why he continues to grow. He continues. There's other quarterbacks that reach a certain level, other coaches that reach a certain level because the people that can give you feedback is very small now. Where when you're a novice, you're just starting, you're getting it from all angles, and you start, almost too much. And just everybody listening can I'm sure that can agree with this. You're starting, receiving feedback on what you can do better is not hard. Also, you get really good at what you do. Matter of fact, you become damn near great at what you do. You need to continue to be coachable and seek feedback. However, who and where you seek feedback from now is that big mass
that
of
population
people
gets much smaller. Yeah.
And mine were the Phil Knight. Mines were the Tim Kight. Mine were the people that I had extremely confidence in that they were going to guide me. My athletic director, Gene Smith, because who else can you reach to? And that's a challenge for when you see people who reach that mountain, the top of the mountain, and they stop growing, they start to go back down the mountain.
Yeah, that's a sad thing to see. I phrase it this way: make sure you have a noticer and a truth teller in your life. A noticer, someone you authorize to say, "Watch me." Notice things and then speak truth. And that they may or may not see it totally accurately. And just because someone gives you feedback doesn't mean that everything they say is 100% accurate. But a good coach is someone who understands the skill, who knows where you are right now, understands your strengths and weaknesses, and go back to our previous episode, who loves you with that kind of committed, uncommon commitment, and is really seeking to push you to that next level and takes you to the edge. The big word that comes to my mind, Urban, when I think about be coachable is humility. Be humble. And I'm a big believer that humility is strength properly directed. I don't think humility is weakness at all. I think humility is, it takes courage to be humble. And for example, and this is the big misnomer, if a pilot of an airplane says, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be humble," and he leaves the cockpit and says, "Whoever wants to fly the plane, please fly." That's not humility, it's homicide. The surgeon leaves so humility is know your strength, know what you do and do it, but then also self-evaluate and recognize where your gaps are.
Humility is a great virtue. And what's a virtue versus a vice? Virtue is appropriate behavior, a vice is inappropriate. And a virtue, how about this? A virtue in excess becomes a vice.
Yeah.
So be very humble, absolutely, but not to those regards.
Yeah.
I also have found out being humble is a characteristic of the elite. The elite. I'm not talking about very good. I'm talking about elite. It's one of the great virtues because in the team world, those around you appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'll say that again, that the elite, I'm talking the best of the best of the best. That's a virtue that they share. They're very humble. And that's a challenge as people become first-round draft picks. We have Dwayne Haskins just went to he's a very humble guy. He needs to stay that way. And the world, narratives, and society doesn't want him to be that way. They want it to be about him. You're the quarterback of a team. You're the CEO of a corporation. You have to lead people. The gift of humility allows people to follow you.
That's enormous.
Arrogance goes the other way. And that's a challenge to everyone, all of us.
Yeah, there's a fine line between arrogance and confidence.
Elite. I got to hit that again with exclamation point, underline, boldface. Elite. We're not talking about average. Elite. Humility is part of their that's one of their virtues.
And one of the tests is how coachable are you?
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap this up because I know you have an extremely important appointment
at Muirfield.
At Muirfield playing golf. But this has been awesome. This conversation, we could do this for days. We could. But how can people follow you? What's your Twitter? How do people follow you on Twitter? What's your Twitter?
I'm not quite sure what it is. I'm starting to learn this.
Can I help you?
Sure.
At OSU Coach Meyer. And that's Meyer, at OSU Coach Meyer. You guys can follow me. I'm at Timothy Kight, and that's Kight, at Timothy Kight. Also, go to our website, which is focus3.com. And that's the number 3, focus3.com. A lot of cool stuff you can get there. I'll also give you my email, and I'd love to hear from you, tim@focus3.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, and just put my name in, Timothy Kight, K-I-G-H-T, and I will show up. Building skill, that's been the topic today, and it's a critically important pursuit for all of us. The question that we're challenging you with is, what is your strategy for building the skills you need for the life you want? And it takes 3 commitments. Choose the mindset, do the work, be coachable. Now, there are skills in your life that will come easily to you. There's other skills that will be very difficult to learn. You will struggle. But folks, that's a good thing. The struggle will make you better. Not just better at the skill, but better at getting better. Go do the work.